The older I get, the more I become convinced that when someone is trying to scare me into doing something, that gives me reason enough to not do it and then take a very long look at the person who's trying to scare me into doing something and ask myself, why are you trying to do this? And what is your motivation? And after what House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner did, I am definitely taking a long, hard look at what he's doing and why he wants to do it. What am I talking about? Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this in just 1 second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. About the middle of the afternoon on Wednesday, Valentine's Day, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner, Republican of Ohio, issued a very unusual statement. Now, there's a lot of unusual things that happen on Capitol Hill. Some are usually unusual and some are unusually unusual. This fell in the unusually unusual column. But what made it so unusually unusual is number one, the fact that Turner even did what he did, and then secondly, how everyone reacted to it. So let's take a look at the story, see if we can figure out what's going on, and then I'll give you my take on what I think is really happening here. We start with thehill.com and we read the following. Headline: House Intelligence Chair calls on Biden to declassify details on, quote, serious national security threat. Article written by Rebecca Besch, we read the following. House Intelligence Chair Mike Turner, Republican Ohio, made a cryptic call for President Biden to declassify information about a, quote, serious national security threat to allow for public discussion about how the U.S. should respond. But Turner's call was largely out of step with other voices in Congress who said the matter, while serious, was no call for alarm. The ranking member on the panel, Representative Jim Himes, Democrat from Connecticut, said it was not one of great urgency and that, quote, people should not panic. Quote, today, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence has made available to all members of Congress information concerning a serious national security threat, Turner said in a statement. I am requesting that President Biden declassify all information relating to this threat so that Congress, the administration, and our allies can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat. Late Tuesday, Turner sent a Dear Colleague letter noting the committee voted to make information about, quote, an urgent matter with regard to a destabilizing foreign military capability that should be known by all congressional policymakers, end of quote. Lawmakers are invited to the committee's Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility Space, or SCIF for short, to review the information over the rest of the week, according to the letter obtained by The Hill. But lawmakers were mum about the contents of the intelligence amid reports it was related to the potential for Russian aggression from space. ABC News reported Wednesday that the intelligence concerned Russian plans to use nuclear weapons in space to target U.S. satellites. CNN also reported Wednesday that the intelligence in question relates to Russia, while Politico reported Tuesday that it's related to space. Okay, let's stop here for a second. That's pretty serious thing Turner is suggesting. Hey, we've got intelligence here. We need to get everybody to take a look at it. Hey, Biden, you need to declassify all this. Well, but no one seems to know exactly what's about. However, other news sources are backing up what The Hill is saying, at least as far as the fact that the House Intelligence Committee has their hands on something that they think, or at least Turner thinks, I should say, ought to be declassified so everybody can look at. So let's see what all the other news agencies are saying. This is ABC from ABC News. Headline: GOP warning of national security threat is about Russia wanting nuclear weapons in space. Sources: it would not be to drop a weapon on Earth, but possibly to use on satellites. Article by John Parkinson, Luke Barr, Ann Lafferty, Luis Martinez, and Adam Carlson. We read the following. The White House's national security advisor and leading lawmakers on Capitol Hill sought to allay public concerns on Wednesday after the House Intelligence Committee chairman warned of a, quote, national security threat related to a destabilizing foreign military capability so serious that President Joe Biden should declassify all information about it. Two sources familiar with deliberations on Capitol Hill said the intelligence has to do with Russia wanting to put a nuclear weapon into space. This would not be to drop a nuclear weapon onto Earth, but rather to possibly use against satellites. Still, it is very concerning and very sensitive, said one source, calling it a big deal. While not addressing the subject directly, multiple members of Congress quickly described the issue as serious without stoking public alarm. Quote, we are going to work together to address this matter as we do all sensitive matters that are classified, House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters at the Capitol on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, that's ABC's take on it. Let's see what CNN has to say. Their headline is as follows. U.S. has new intelligence on Russian nuclear capabilities in space. Whole list of authors. I shall not bother you with the names. Let's go straight to it. The U.S. has new intelligence on Russian military capabilities related to its efforts to deploy a nuclear anti-satellite system in space, according to multiple sources familiar with the intelligence. The intelligence was briefed to Congress and key U.S. allies, and some lawmakers say it is serious enough that it should be declassified and made public. While the intelligence is concerning, multiple senior members of Congress briefed on the information on Wednesday emphasized it does not pose an immediate threat to the U.S. or its interest. The system remains under development and is not yet in orbit, according to three U.S. officials familiar with the intelligence. It is not clear how far the intelligence has progressed, one of the officials said. A separate U.S. official told CNN the threat does not involve a weapon that could be used to attack humans. It was not immediately clear whether the intelligence referred to a nuclear-powered anti-satellite capability or a nuclear-armed capability. Okay. And one last source on this matter, and that's Politico. We'll take a look at what they have to say. Headline. Disturbing intel roiling the Hill is about Russian nukes in space. Article by Eric Banco, Alexander Ward, Lee Hudson. We read the following. A vague warning by the chair of the House Intelligence Committee about a serious national security threat Wednesday is related to Russia's attempts to develop an anti-satellite nuclear weapon for use in space, according to two people familiar with the matter. While the people did not provide further details on the intel, one of them noted the U.S. has for more than a year been concerned about Russia's potentially creating and deploying an anti-satellite nuclear weapon, a weapon the U.S. and other countries would be unable to adequately defend against. Okay, so all this is going on. Seems like it's a legit story. But let's go back to that article from thehill.com. I want to read a little bit more about this. Turner, who often sends statements in conjunction with Himes, the ranking minority member on the committee, did not do so Wednesday. Himes held back criticism of Turner but said, "Thanks, Mike," when a reporter noted the panic being caused by the statement. Quote, "Look, Mike is right to highlight the issue, but it's so sensitive that right now we're not publicly discussing it. And I don't want people thinking that, Martians are landing or that your Wednesday is going to be ruined. But it's something that Congress, the administration does need to address in the medium to long run." During a White House briefing Wednesday, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said he was surprised Turner sought to go public with the information while the White House was organizing a briefing. Quote, "I reached out earlier this week to the Gang of Eight to offer myself up for a personal briefing for the Gang of Eight and scheduled for the 4 House members for tomorrow. All I can tell you is I'm focused on going to see him as well as the other House members of the Gang of Eight." Okay, let's get into this. As I say, what Turner did falls into the unusually unusual category of things that happen on Capitol Hill. Now, is the information important? Well, apparently so. Every policymaker mentioned in these articles takes it seriously. Is it something that people should be very concerned about? Well, again, at this stage, no one seems to be, or it may be better to say they're not hitting the panic button yet. If the article from CNN is to be believed, or I should say the sources are accurate, then this is something that's in the medium to long term sort of a concern. The weapon's not been deployed. We don't even know what the weapon is yet. Maybe it's a nuclear weapon put up in space to deal with satellites, but I kind of have a hard time believing that. If the Russians or anybody else were going to use nuclear weapons, okay, there's certain advantages to knocking out certain satellites. It would affect our ability to communicate and see what's actually going on in the world. But if someone's going to use a nuke, why have it up in space? Why not just launch the thing from down here on planet Earth and do whatever it is you want to do? Okay, possibly. Is it something that everybody seems to be aware of? Yeah. Matter of fact, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, was on his way to brief the Gang of Eight. Now, if you're not familiar with what that term is, the Gang of Eight is the Majority Leader of the Senate, Minority Leader of the Senate, Speaker of the House, Ranking Minority Member of the House, the Chairman of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees, and the ranking minority members on the Senate Intelligence and House Intelligence Committees, the Gang of Eight. So everybody knows about it. Everybody is appropriately aware of it. Everybody's concerned about it. But the only person apparently hitting the panic button right now is Mike Turner, which sort of begs the question, why? Now, years ago, I had a teacher who taught me something in the form of a modified nursery rhyme, and it goes like this. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. When you hear that phrase, what is the very next thing you should say? My teacher asked me. Well, after I gave the standard, all the king's horses and all the king's men, the teacher went, no, 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 no. Who's pushing Humpty and what's in it for them? And that is what makes me wonder what Turner's doing. Why is Turner pushing the button on this? Why is he pushing it, and what's the advantage to him? Well, there may be two different things going on here. One of them has to do with a renewal of Section 702 of the FISA bill. Now, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically the section which deals with the question of warrantless surveillance. Right now, Section 702 of FISA is up for renewal, and it's being debated or will soon be debated in the U.S. House of Representatives. And many of the opponents of 702 want provisions built in that require a warrant each and every time the government surveils an American citizen. Well, when asked about that today, Jake Sullivan, again, National Security Advisor, gave the following response. And needless to say, it makes me worry a little bit for our dear beloved Fourth Amendment. So give me 1 second here, folks, and I will show you exactly what he said, which, needless to say, was just a little bit more than troubling. Take a listen to this.
On FISA, there are a couple of amendments that are being considered. One of them would require a warrant for every query of lawfully collected data. If that were to pass and get into the bill, would the president veto that bill?
So I'm not in a position to stand here today and make veto threats on behalf of the president. Those are decisions for him to make. What I will tell you is that we do not believe that that serves the national security interests of the United States. And in fact, today I will be making that case to a number of members that the warrant requirement as conceived is not the best way actually to ensure the protection of the personal privacy of Americans. There are a number of other elements of the bill that we have supported that would reform and update FISA to protect the civil liberties of Americans. But a warrant requirement from our perspective would go too far in undermining the very purpose of FISA. And frankly, it would put victims at risk.
Well, I don't know about you, but given the track record of the United States government in matters of protecting my rights to privacy, I'm sorry, Jakey boy. I think I'd like to have something built into Section 702 that says anytime you guys feel the need to go surveilling me or any other American citizen, you better damn well have a warrant that says you can do it. Because the last time I read the parts of the Fourth Amendment that are pretty applicable, they say that I have the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. And war on terror or not, war on whatever or not, you can't go making me insecure in my person, house, papers, and effects unless you've got a warrant to do it, surveillance or not. So all the same, Jake, stick an amendment in there that guarantees me that you guys put a warrant on every time you do this. It'd make me feel a whole lot better, and I'd sleep at night in more comfort. Now, lest you think that I'm the only person that's thinking that this might be what's going on, take a look at something. This goes back to that article from Politico. Oh, no, excuse me, not Politico. I stand corrected. It's thehill.com. Let me get further into this thing, because I'm not the only one who has this suspicion about FISA. Take a look at this. Further on in that article from The Hill, we read the following. A bill to reauthorize the program could reach the House floor as soon as Thursday, with privacy advocates in Congress lobbying hard to amend the bill to include a warrant requirement that is strongly opposed by the intelligence community. Isn't intelligence the committee that Mike Turner chairs in the U.S. House? But we read further. Turner's announcement spurred skepticism from proponents of a warrant requirement. Quote, bizarre timing considering we are trying to end warrantless government surveillance this week, said Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona, on Twitter. And Mike Lee, Republican senator from Utah, called Turner a spy guy in questioning the timing of his call. Very interested to learn about this threat. Also very interested to know why the spy guys are raising suspicious alarms right before we're about to reform illegal domestic surveillance under FISA. Okay, so maybe I'm not the only one with this suspicion, but there is one other consideration that I think could be very, very telling as to why it is Turner is pushing the panic button on this thing. And it goes back to that article from Politico. 1 second, and I'll pull this up. And I think you'll begin to understand why I'm getting very suspicious of Turner. Take a look at this. Further into that Politico article, it's possible Turner was attempting to raise alarms about Russia's advancements in space as a way of underscoring the need for lawmakers to approve additional aid to Ukraine. The Senate passed the supplemental bill, including $60 billion in aid for Kiev. It is currently under review by the House. Now, people are going to sit there and say that I am besmirching and impugning the motives and the honor of the representative and honorable Mike Turner of Ohio. Now, maybe his motivations are pure. Okay, fine. I don't know that his only motivations are national security. Turner's been a very big proponent of funding the war in Ukraine against Russia ever since this thing got started. And now that the package is up for uncertainty in the House, given Mike Johnson's statement that he's not going to let this thing come to a vote, could it very well be that Representative Turner is pushing the panic button as a way to scare people to put the squeeze on Johnson to make him bring the bill to the floor? Wouldn't surprise me if he did, and it's not like we haven't seen this sort of thing done before in one form or another by various members of Congress, be they Republicans or Democrats. It's not unusual to use fear and scare tactics to try to get Congress to do things. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, fine, I'll come back to this microphone and admit it. But like everybody else, I'm a little bit dubious of Turner's actions. So, we'll see how all this shakes out. Oh, but by the way, there is some good news, at least on Section 702 of FISA. And I forgot to tell you about this a little bit earlier. Check this out from Breitbart. House Speaker pulls surveillance bill after House Intel lawmakers fold. Article written by Sean Moran, we read the following. Speaker Mike Johnson announced on Wednesday that the House will no longer consider a government surveillance bill after House Intelligence Committee was, quote, smoked by pro-reform lawmakers. Raj Shah, the deputy communications chief for Speaker Mike Johnson, announced, quote, in order to allow Congress more time to reach a consensus on how best to reform FISA and Section 702 while maintaining the integrity of our critical national security programs, the House will consider the reform and reauthorization bill at a later date. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican of Minnesota, announced in a press release that lawmakers would no longer vote on H.R. 7320, the Reforming Intelligence and Securing America Act, this week. Okay, there's some good news. Like I say, there's a lot of problems with FISA, and many people have gone on to criticize it, but at least for right now, there's a temporary victory. I'm in the hope that if we are going to reauthorize FISA, it'd be with some serious reforms that protect the Fourth Amendment rights of all Americans. But, that's just me. But me is not alone in this, I do not believe. But that's what I think about it all. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number 1, if you are not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number 2, please give me a thumbs up. Number 3, please hit the bell for notifications. I always want to make sure you're always aware when new videos and live streams are coming out. Number 4, please leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think about all this. And finally, please share the video around. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I will see you next time.